How about you?
At a 40-minute. Ladies and gentlemen, it is 6 o'clock. We'll start our meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome, everyone. Get started right off here. It is recommended that the Board of Education adopt minutes from the July 6th, 2022 reorganizational meeting and the July 6th, 2022 regular meeting. Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Moved by Clyde,
I'll second.
second by Brian Reed. Any discussion, corrections, additions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried. All right, item number 2, superintendent report. Mr. Ryan, you have the floor.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Nice to see you all. It's been forever since we've seen you. A lot has been happening in district and really excited tonight to be able to present to you our draft of strategic plans. I use the word draft because only a small portion of our teacher population has seen our plans. So our building principals still have to roll those out, introduce those to all of their staff sometime on opening day or the day after, which is right around the corner. I don't know if any of you realize it, but it is August 17th today. I didn't do the countdown, but I'm sure every kid out there is doing the countdown, and we're go time.
Thank
Here,
you.
22 days. So it says, yeah,
I'm ready.
it's go time at school to try to get ready. If you were to walk through some of our buildings, you think there's no way in heck that we will be ready. I can assure you that we will. Our team is going to work really hard to make that happen. So tonight is really about recognition of some very difficult work. Some work that was really very collaborative, number one, and number two, very focused on empowerment of staff this year, and really trying to pay it forward with respect to leadership, and really thinking about how the individual is responsible for leading their area, whoever that individual might be within the organization. And so 40 plus teachers, administrators gathered with this year. Our site was the Colonial Theater upstairs. A great opportunity for some of our teachers to see that for the first time. I don't know if anybody has been there to see that venue. Really nice spot. You got to call in advance to make sure that they're running air conditioning a day in advance. Otherwise, it's not as cool as it could be. But again, just a great site. And I think I'll say it again, very collaborative and really an opportunity to focus on paying that leadership piece forward. And so tonight, you're going to hear a little bit of an overview to get us started. And the overview is really going to focus on, number one, we're going to see for the first time a leadership team that has a newness feel. Once again, you're going to meet Mr. Terry Devine, our new middle school principal tonight. He's probably waving to you behind the posts over there. Joining us, so you're approving his appointment tonight. He's been with us for the better part of the last 3 weeks. Actually, day one was day one of our leadership, which was great addition. And of course, Sarah Gilwell will be transitioning in as our acting principal at Perry Brown. So we'll be hearing from her for Perry Brown strategic plan draft. And then, of course, I think many got the invite just to come and support. Many of them participated in that process. And so you'll see some faces in the crowd that are responsible for the work that you're going to see. So if at any time you have any questions, I would encourage you to really engage. Don't wait until the very end to hit them with 15 questions. Your building principals will be presenting tonight. But please view this as more of a conversation. Okay. So we're going to kick off tonight with, am I clicking, Jess?
I can click for you if you want.
I can do it. I'm just gonna start with her.
Okay.
Way easier.
Watch this. Hey, Jess, we're 24 hours ago. Where were you exactly?
Oh.
Sure. Everybody know this?
Europe. I hate to say this.
Just 16 days in Europe. Jess is just transitioning back today. Yesterday was in Krakow, Poland.
He's making that up.
Not true. So Jess is, if she's a little foggy, that's really why I'm saying this. She might be a little foggy with a little jet lag, but rest assured she'll be with us. All right, Jess, we're on slide number 3. This is perfect. All right, so we're going to start tonight's presentation with, again, revisiting our mission and vision and really paying attention to that line in our mission that talks about this progression design experiences. Again, I want you looking for themes tonight when you hear from your building principals with respect to our strategic plans for the 22-23 school year. Within our vision, I want you really thinking about this aspirational goal of becoming a model organization. What are those steps that NCSD is taking? And certainly have taken, is taking currently, and those that are on the horizon to become that model organization, where all kids can be successful. The next, and we didn't spend a ton of time with this really last year, but I really want to bring this back to the forefront. The mission and vision, of course, drives our value system, but I want to zoom in on number 5 for purposes of today to say that we have committed to promoting an unrelenting focus on meeting the needs of every single student in district. As of right now, our count yesterday was 1,661. We're down approximately 50 students. Pretty typical this time of year is we'll see about probably 50 kindergarten enrollments, maybe not just kindergarten, but some of those early enrollments, early learner enrollments here within the next couple of weeks, something like waiting till the last second, but it's an annual event, so get ready. So really focusing on that. And again, I think as we begin to transition, I'll propose for the Board of Education to think about 2 major things, right? The first is through the investments that we've made over the course of the last 2 years and will continue to make as we move forward, what does NCSD value and how do you know? Okay, so when you're looking for what does NCSD value and how do you know? Okay. So this slide is really just an interesting segue for me to really think about the relationship between what we value and how we invest. We think about investing in people solely, right? You're absent some of the major system work that has to happen in an organization this size. So we see those 3 things with a significant sort of symbiotic relationship. And that investment of people is because we are a people business. And if we think about directly or indirectly, people will have the greatest impact on student outcomes. So I want you thinking about an investment in people and the impact that has on both system and process in district. Again, you're looking for themes as we move through tonight. Remember that people are the rudders of the systems and process. We're going to throw some big numbers out tonight. And these numbers are really just to illustrate investment in what we value. In the last two years, I would say NCSD has placed a significant investment in professional learning opportunities for our staff, and so all these images really reflect. Of course, this is not just for our new staff, but for all staff. $3.15 million is what we estimate we have invested in people. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. When we think about people, right, we're not just talking about individuals. We're talking about contracts for 3 major bargaining units. We're talking about individual positions. We're talking about direct teacher and student supports for the classroom. We're talking about investment in safety positions throughout the entire district. So Brian, you want to talk a little bit about maybe some of the contract piece that we've invested in with respect to how they term with the contract?
Sure. So just so the board knows, that number, the 3.15 million, is actually a combination of what we may have spent already. So say at tail end of 2021, definitely 21, 22. And then it's also a combination of budget. I think the grants span 3 to 4 years. The numbers kind of aggregating all of that to show what is the investment being either spent or are planning to spend in each of these 3 areas. So as Scott said, the first piece is that I'm looking at my cheat sheet here, are those contracts. There's really kind of 4 areas. So the first one was that NEO contract. The average increase in the first year alone of that contract was 7.36%. Now, if you look at the life of that contract, which was only 2 years, it's an 11.12% increase. Go to NACAPS, or our administrative group, 4.75% year one, 12.21% over the life of their contract. But in essence, our support staff, average 10% increase in year one, 21% increase over the 4-year contract. And then finally, what we say is MCNR, so managerial, confidential, not represented. We just put out a 4.75% increase this past year. So why do we outline that? Well, it's really for us, it's how do we invest in people? How do we retain them? This labor market is probably the craziest thing any of us have ever seen. So to us, it represents an investment in showing our staff that we value you, we want you here, we want you to help us grow. So what else is in that 3.15? So other than just the contracts alone, we have staff positions. So in the past couple of years, we brought back, God, I don't know at this point, but probably over 40 positions. You put that into dollars, instructionally $1.29 million worth of new positions were funded. That's state new, I'll get to that in a second. Support staff, 491,000. We have a new HR director that brings value to this district. So why I say that is we're trying to get back to a healthy student and staff ratio that we've been kind of off the past few years. And really with this 22 budget, we're back to that. So that's going to do a lot for this district in terms of student supports, right? And then finally, kind of the third bucket that makes up that 3.15 is the PLC initiatives, and using those grants to fund PLT lead positions or the stipends. We have PLC partners, we have MTSS coordinators. And then we have a ton of money set aside to invest in people in terms of PD. So certainly Jess, you want to weigh in, kind of collaborate on any of that.
Yeah, so I mean, I think just in terms of those key positions, that's where you're seeing us really move toward being a data-driven district. So with the onboarding of MTSS coordinators and PLC partners, those are the folks that are really getting clear on the assessment pieces and being able to look at those data pieces. And then, PLC partners, they are working super closely with teachers, planning out year-long professional learning, heavily involved in our new professional orientation that starts tomorrow. It's going to be 3 days this year, as well as, when we think about that in terms of retention, that's a big deal, having that really on the ground support for teachers.
Any questions on that? Great. So those of you that are dialed into social media have seen a huge surge in the last month, really with opportunities where our students have engaged in our community, whether that's with county agencies, with Supreme Court judge, learning how to become an archer, a proficient archer here in district, or making pizzas with Dave Schull down in Enos. Some unbelievable experiences for kids, not just the experience of maybe learning how to shoot a bow or meeting a Supreme Court judge, but really just an understanding of what exists in this community. We actually had teachers that said, I didn't know that this type of thing existed in town, and they lived here their entire life, right? So I mean, that there was a huge sort of reawakening of some of the great things that occur right here in the city limits. So again, just another example of how we're investing in program. We think about primarily schools as being a 10-month organization or operates in a 10-month capacity. And really what we said is we're more like a 12-month organization where we're offering access to kids to unique programming all year round. And this was, to me, a great example of that. So just wanted to highlight that tonight with our very successful stay and play program. Other areas where we have significantly invested in the area, when we think program, really think about affording these designed authentic learning experiences, for all students, living in this area of innovation with our CARE program, expanding our continuum of special education with those internal programs that you've heard us talk about over the course of the last couple of years, to a Gibson, to a Fairground, and the latest, the Grasshopper program, with the collaboration with the Autism and ADHD cooperative service that is on Dr. Lopez's office. Just again, some examples of those types of collaborations that have existed or that are existing right now to bolster some of the programming here at Norwich City School District. Brian, anything you want to add on that?
Yeah, just a little bit. I mean, in terms of the numbers, you think that support services group that makes up part of this 1.92 million. You know, you've got child, ADHD, Shenango County Behavioral Services, you got LPP. Those alone, that's over $500,000 annually that we're every year determining, okay, whether this is grant fund or general fund funded, how do we continue those services to students? You've got, like Scott said, the internal programming, a lot of which has been brought back in-house, so Gibson, Perry Brown, middle school, a lot of teachers refocused on having those kids stay internally at our district, get the care program. So you just think culturally what that does to have those kids stay here with us as opposed to being constantly sent down at various placements, that's huge. And that alone is 1.3 million annually that we're choosing to invest in that kind of programming. And kind of the third main bucket, again, Jess, I think you can speak to this better, but it's the various STEAM initiatives, Project Lead the Way, and certainly anything else you want to highlight, Jess.
So I really think it's just aligns with our mission and vision in terms of creating that progression design experiences across every area. So whether it's STEAM, whether it's guaranteed and viable curriculum for writers and readers workshop or math, certainly providing offerings for all kids. So you know, our third science credit now at the high school will be biomedical science through Project Lead the Way. So really moving to lift up every student. And I see, you know, with this programming, that's really doing that.
And just the last piece that I would point out is Stanley saw an addition of 2 more inclusive extracurriculars with unified sports and girls flag football in this past school year. Anything with respect to programming? Any questions? Again, see this as a conversation. Jess literally just flew in today at 3 o'clock, so it's the first time she's seen it.
Not true. I saw this.
Watch it on the plane.
Yeah. So again, the next investment is really about when we use the phrase model organization, right? There's a look and there's a feel that comes with that. So as we think about making significant investments into the facilities, here's just a few examples. You know, I think you may or may not have seen it. Those of you that follow Twitter might have seen it. You know, the gymnasium, we'll see for the first time, the angry tornado will disappear. That is at center court and transition into our branded tornado that you're hopefully beginning to see throughout the entire organization. So just that continuum where in the middle, you can see it half or a quarter sanded. 3 out of 4 of our buildings on September 6th will be outfitted. By September 6th, will be outfitted with all brand new furniture that's movable, that's flexible, that's meeting the needs of the diverse learning groups that we have. And of course, really thinking about how do parents access our buildings, right? We talked about this number before. Out of 400 students at Gibson, 250 of those students are parent pickup and drop off. These buildings were not designed for that. So in our next building project, which by the way is slated to break ground this coming summer, right? Less than a year from today, there's an example of what that new sort of separated bus and parent pickup and drop off looks like up at Gibson. So continuing to make those investments, that $42 million number up top there, that really talks about, and Brian will go into certainly more depth with this, but that's our $35 million building project that has already been approved by our community, right? And then some on top of that. Next slide, Jess.
What's the question?
Yeah.
You said 3 or 4 will have the seating done. Who's not going to have it, and when will it get done?
Yep, so probably by the first week in October, the high school will be outfitted.
Great.
Yep.
And I'll tell you, Brian, being in Perry Brown today, I was like Goldilocks today, Bernie, in your classroom. I hope you don't mind. I tried out some of the 4th grade furniture since I'm about the same height. It's fantastic. And it's such a great feel, you know, for people to be able to come in and have fresh furniture that all looks the same. It really speaks volumes.
So some other things that aren't on the slide, but it's really important, are the security updates we've been doing. So 2.4 million is going into security alone in the past 2 years in this district. Smart schools project, had 2 back-to-back capital outlay projects, and then this upcoming transfer to capital project. Again, it's $2.4 million we're injecting into the district to make this place a little more secure for staff and students. The capital project, like Scott said, other than the stuff we're going to see, there's a lot that's going into the infrastructure. So think all probably half of it, or almost half of it's going on the roofs. Going into HVAC, I think our federal stimulus project, there's probably almost 2 million that's going into just making the air cleaner throughout our district.
Again, just HVAC, just so everybody's aware, heating, ventilation, air conditioning. Okay.
Boiler work is being done as we speak. So hopefully when the snow starts flying, we have boilers at the high school, which we will. Over $1 million went into that new furniture. So we were able to strategically appropriate money out of surplus and put that right back into the classrooms. And then finally, the largest chunk after that is tech and kind of the curriculum area. Again, I'm gonna kick it to Jess. But a lot of good stuff, science labs, maker spaces, we got a new Mac lab, we've got a project Lead the Way lab, will be online this year. We put tech in the auditorium, like in room 1 in the high school. So if you add all that up, and there's things in these numbers, we haven't even, we were talking right before this, there's stuff we forgot to even put on these lists, so. A lot of good stuff is happening across the district. Yeah, Jess, you wanna?
Yeah, so I mean, I think it's just that three-pronged approach of saying, you know, people and the program and the place, and so the place really has to support the programming. So when you're talking about things like STEAM spaces, you know, having that furniture that's designed for kids to be able to move about and collaborate, for teachers to get alongside kids, it's super important so that kids, you know, are emerging from here with the skills they need to be successful right away. So it all aligns.
Brian, are we, I forget the term, school district term for it, but are we gonna go forward with a building master plan setup? So we're not, again, looking in 10 or 15 years at a giant chunk and versus investing over time as things
We
are.
maintain what's called a building conditions
Right,
survey.
that's what it is.
Yeah.
We do maintain that.
Okay, and our intent will be to, because that's what led us here, right?
Yeah.
We had it, we didn't really follow it that closely, and now we got a sludge of stuff
Yeah.
coming.
So basically, this first 35 million is taking off the top chunk of that list.
Right, okay,
So we actually have to submit our BCS building condition survey in 2023, which will then be updated, and the next project will start peeling that apart.
got it.
But with these capital outlays too, and especially if they increase that, and we discussed way back, they might
Yeah.
increase that limit. We can start knocking out some of the smaller stuff too.
Perfect.
And then you'll start to see more of the front-facing things
Yes,
being chipped out away more than,
infrastructure.
yes.
So great segue, Brian, then to really start thinking about, you know, as we talk about these investments, the thing that we have to continue to be mindful of is, are these investments sustainable, right? What are the recurring costs? What are the replacement costs? We have a cycle for that. So there's a lot of work that goes into the backdrop to ensure that we maintain that level of that aspirational model organization. So I wanted to just, you know, provide a little bit of an overview of some of the investment that we've made to really further the work of our mission and vision. Any questions before we transition into our strategic plan for this coming school year?
Yeah.
Damn, say something.
Sing a song. Anybody sing this?
So, let's transition. I'll say it again, we spent a couple days really focused on empowering leadership this past July. And although there's a huge amount of areas that we'd love to focus, we know that we have to stay small and truly focus on three major areas of the organization. The first one is improving attendance. The second one is on strengthening the professional learning community, which is the structure that supports academic outcomes. Certainly the social emotional supports as well. And then dovetailing into increasing student performance across the board, pre-K through 12. Three major focus areas. What you're going to hear tonight is specific data points at each of our buildings that will speak directly to these three major goals. So again, think of these as big district goals, and then each building will tailor it to action plans suitable for their developmental level. Does that make sense? Great. So I want to throw out a little background now before we get started. You're going to hear the term chronic absenteeism tonight, right? When we think about improving attendance, that's not news to any of you. We've been talking about that since the pandemic. Correct? Nod your heads if you're with me.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
So when we talk about chronic absenteeism in a 180-day school year, anyone who meets that criteria means that they have missed 18 or more days, 10%. or more. Okay? So you're gonna see some building level specific numbers around chronic absenteeism that allow us to really focus on improving attendance district-wide. What I want you as a Board of Education tonight focusing on is the what versus the how. The how, our building level administrators will be going back to their buildings and saying, this is the action plan that will support this. This is how we will collaboratively measure this, right? What you as a Board of Education are focused on is the what. What is our focus? What do we value? And how do you know? Does that make sense?
Chronic absenteeism different than chronic tardiness.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Okay,
And
Jess?
well, I just wanted to add in terms of how did we arrive at these three goals? Well, really, it was about looking at data. So when we brought the whole team together, we really looked at all kinds of different data pieces, from attendance to performance to teacher retention, all of these different data points, and then said, what do we think are the three main pieces we can really impact this work? So it wasn't, us bringing the three main goals, rather it was a collaborative effort of folks coming together and saying, yep, and, they aligned with each building. So
Pretty cool too, that for maybe not the first time here last year, but we don't have to have a finance number up there. Brian would love your work. That's good. That's why you're not up there, but pretty cool. We can transition to thinking about the things that,
instruction,
It's a great point.
construction exactly.
right,
It is.
which is student outcomes.
Okay,
All right.
ladies and gentlemen, Jen Oliver, Gibson Principal.
Hi, everybody. Jen, what's your nonverbal signal for me? Are you gonna wake at me? Okay.
That's a pretty,
Hey. So.
So we want to always go back to our why. And we'd like to introduce little Scotty and little Jessie. Look how much hair little Scotty has. My gosh, look at him growing up there. You're welcome, Brian. We did not find a little Brian-y. Little Bart for you. So we're gonna follow little Scotty and Jessie throughout the years from pre-K to graduation. And the scenarios you have in front of you are also all of the students that could represent from pre-K to graduation, their strengths, their striving areas, and maybe their backgrounds. And I don't want you to turn to the back yet of the scenarios because you'll have time for that later. And on the back, it will tell you how we as teams are going to provide the systems of support to watch them grow and succeed. So we'll get to that later.
Maybe we could make it a little more natural.
With me? Nah. Okay, so starting at Stanford J. Gibson. In this part of the presentation, we'll go over three key areas that we will show how we'll provide an unrelenting focus to meeting the needs of every single child. And for the purposes, we will follow Scotty and Jessie as we progress throughout the years in the different buildings. But before we get into the plan, we have to thank all of the people that put in the blood, sweat, and tears to create the plans. It's hours and hours and hours it went. After the Colonial Theater, we came back again together at Gibson. We've been in contact via email. So the plan really is living and breathing. We continue to make it better and better. So please, if you are here, stand up. Ms. Kyle Wenzel, Jen Yanowak, Suzanne Bignani, Jen Bolin, Wendy Wynn, Margaret Fetzko, Caitlin Carnahan, Amber Oliver, Alyssa Lashier, and of course, Amy Martin, who's a part of all of our plans. We worked really, really hard. Thank you. They did, I'm just so proud. They did amazing.
Jen, you said blood, sweat, and tears. I remember a lot of sweat. I don't remember the blood. No.
We'll keep that symbolic, yeah, stays at the Colonial. Yeah. Okay, so, we will start off with goal number one, and I don't think anybody will be surprised here that we started our focus with our literacy results. So our goal, number one, is to increase the number of students reading at or above grade level by 20%. We use something called the Fontes and Pinnell benchmarking system. We do that 3 times a year for all students to see where they are growing, where their needs are, and how we can provide our best interventions. The reason we came up with a 20% proficiency rate that we would like to increase is because these are our numbers. Our incoming first grade, they were at or above grade level 53%. We want to raise that to 73%. Our incoming second grade, we were at 48% at or above grade level. We'd like to raise that to at least 68%. How are we going to do that? Through our action plan. We're going to use the Fontes and Pinnell benchmark 3 times a year. We've created new intervention structures that we're very excited about. We will always have our weekly PLC meetings to discuss student data. Really what that means is we're going to evaluate, assess those evaluations, and implement interventions on a consistent basis and keep moving students. So
I don't want to be the nerdy math guy, but you're selling yourself short. That's a 40% increase. You're 20% of an absolute.
yes,
So really, I mean, that's amazing. 40% increase is a lot.
yes,
So, yeah.
thank you.
Taking up on.
It's all about Scotty and Jesse, right? Scotty and Jesse are in those percentages and we need to provide them, and it's our goal, right? And we always say at least, it's our goal. We want to reach it and we're going to do the best we can. But yes, we set it rigorous because the need is there.
Jen, some might look at those numbers and think that, they might be a little low, right, in terms of where students end at the year. What are some of the contributors to that?
Yeah, it's interesting that you asked that question. It's like you're in my head because goal number 2 tells us some of the why, right? We could look at those numbers and go, okay, here's our action plan, move on. Wasn't enough. We need to know why are those our numbers? We haven't had numbers like that before. We can attribute it to
Some of
COVID.
it, right?
Some of it, a lot of it. And that relates to chronic absenteeism. So goal number 2, why were our literacy rates like that? Well, our students, many of them are not engaged in the learning process. And we have staggering numbers for chronic absenteeism. And we want to reduce our chronic absenteeism rates from 46% to 25%. Again, a huge goal, but we want to get there. This is because we looked at every student, instead of a percentage, we wanted to show numbers, right? Because Scotty and Jesse are in there somewhere. 58 out of 126 incoming first graders were chronically absent. We want to reduce that to at least 31 out of 126. Our incoming second graders, we had 38 out of 104. I want to reduce that to at least 26 out of 104. And how are we going to do that? Through our action plan. We're going to update and implement new attendance protocols. I'm very excited about it on a consistent basis. There's a lot of research out there that says that if a student misses 2 to 3 days in the first couple of weeks, that they are most likely to be chronically absent. So let's reach out to them right away. What's going on? How can we help? That leads itself to our next part of our action plan. We want to examine the root causes of the chronic absenteeism and provide an individualized intervention plan for students and families to help them re-engage in the learning process. And so that third point is provide opportunities to re-engage our community of learners and families. So, with COVID, we saw something that we've never seen before in education. And with COVID came lots and lots of barriers for families, vaccinated, not vaccinated, question marks here and there and everywhere. The hope is that we take down the barriers and re-engage in really great opportunities for students and families and provide them with that connection. That's what we're hoping for.
Striving for.
Hope is not a strategy. So how are we going to do that? Well, goal number 3 just so easily aligns with those things. We are going to become better and better at being a professional learning community. So within the presentation, there is a link for you later on to look at what a PLC rubric looks like. But basically, it's a way for us to self-assess as teams, how we're doing as a PLC. Where are our areas of growth? So we did that activity at the end of last year. And all of the grade levels came together to assess how they were. The PLC leads did some of that self-reflection. And this year, we'll do it together with whole groups of teachers throughout the year. We're gonna benchmark all year. How do we feel we're doing as a PLC? Some of those things that we're going to focus on, some of those indicators are building a collaborative culture through high-performing teams, responding to conflicts, and focusing on results. And I really want to stay on that last one, focusing on results. If we get better as a PLC by focusing on results, we're going to see the results we want for chronic absenteeism. We're going to see the results that we want for literacy. So we get better, our results get better, we move past COVID, and we have an unrelenting focus on meeting the needs of all students.
And Jen, I think if I could just tie into when we talk about the investment in the program. So when you think about the several $100,000 of investment in books, in curriculum, in professional learning, all of that ties into that piece of every child, no matter what classroom they're in, having the same access to that curriculum.
Nice job, Jen. Any questions for Gibson?
Before I pass the baton, I do also want to thank the admin team that worked really hard on putting this together. So it was cohesive, fun, and we had a lot of laughs, and I'm very proud of the work we did together. And I am pleased to introduce Sarah Gilbo for.
Thank you so much. I'm Sarah Gilbo. I am acting principal at Perry Brown. And I'm so thankful for this opportunity to stand before you and present Perry Brown's plan of attack as we work to follow the adventures of Scotty and Jesse. So, first, our team has grown a lot. We have worked together very well, and I'm just so proud of the work that our team has put into building our strategic plan and actually just all throughout the school year. I'd like to thank Pam Chapman, Robin Buckman, stand up, Melissa Lawrence, Florence Squires, Bernie Jackson, Michelle Pomaris, and Michelle Osterhout. Thank you. So as we get started with goal number 1, our district is focused, as you've heard, on reducing chronic absenteeism, which is missing 10% or more of the school year for students. So our first goal is to reduce chronic absenteeism to at least 20%. So in the 21-22 school year, 35.4% of Perry Brown students were chronically absent. We are going to work to reduce that number to at least 20% by implementing a revised attendance protocol that lays out step-by-step process of interventions we will put in place when a student is exhibiting signs of having that chronic absenteeism behavior. We will expand our family engagement opportunities. We're looking forward to inviting families and community members into our building, really to foster that positive home to school connection. And we will refine our MTSS, our multi-tiered system of support procedures, and all of the structures that support that. And that includes having weekly meetings that are centered around students and centered around data, thinking about our students and the whole child. We're thinking about social emotional learning as well as academic needs in those MTSS support meeting procedures. Thank you. Goal number 2. So when we talk about committing to a professional learning community, we chose to focus on one area of that, which is teacher retention. As we know, nationwide, there is a teacher shortage. Colleges are reporting reduced numbers of enrollment in education programs across the board. So our goal is to increase non-tenured teacher retention at Perry Brown to 100%. So I'm going to break that down for you. This past year, 83% of non-tenured teachers at Perry Brown were retained within the district. That's 10 out of 12 that we had last year. This year, we have 14 non-tenured teachers, and we are going to look to keep all of them. And our plan of attack for that is to implement district-wide strategies like new professionals, support systems. We are on the heels or on the toes, however you say it, of new professionals orientation, which is a 3-day orientation that all of our new teachers and staff will be a part of. We're looking forward to that. Our mentor program is another system of support that we have to really wrap our arms around our teachers. We will engage in frequent and ongoing professional learning time, and that is really speaks to the investment that our district has made, not only in supporting all teachers, but in supporting our first and second year teachers. So they will receive targeted professional development all throughout the year. And lastly, of course, we're going to focus on student achievement. And this is something that I really want us to consider, that each grade level at Perry Brown, we will work to increase the number of students reading at or above grade level by 10%. That's at each grade level. So just for a data point, we look at our rising fifth graders. This is our cohort of students that we're going to send on to the middle school. So when Scotty and Jesse are coming into fifth grade this year, 63% of them were reading at or above grade. We're looking to increase that by at least 10%. Our goal is to strengthen our tier 1 instruction. Actually, that's our plan of action. How we will do that is to strengthen our tier 1 literacy instruction, readers workshop, writers workshop, again, that investment in that guaranteed and viable curriculum. Every child will have access to the same essential learning standards across the board. We will reform our structure of intervention. So a lot of these themes are the same that you're seeing here from Gibson to Perry Brown. You'll continue to see these themes across all 4 buildings. As we work to unify our district, we have the same mission, same vision, same. And so just like at Gibson, we will reform our structure of intervention. All of our teachers will be providing targeted reading intervention for all of our students, as our data indicates. And that leads me to engaging in weekly data-centered meetings. And in those meetings, we use our information from things like the Fontes and Pinnell benchmarks and common formative assessments to really drive our instructional decisions and how we will support our students. Anything else?
This isn't fair to you. I apologize. So
No,
this
it's
is
okay. I got
generic
it.
to the building principals at this point. First off, congratulations. Glad to have continuity. The kiddos coming in a few weeks and a face certainly that they appreciate. So congratulations.
Thank
Second, so this would be a generic question, but the chronic absenteeism numbers, certainly COVID affected a lot of this. Do we know what our absenteeism numbers were, say 2019 back as a benchmark to see whether we're improving against that?
Yes, we do know.
Yeah, we have access.
Yes.
It'd be interesting to know that because we're working off of a benchmark of, in theory, something that caused stress into that particular metric, and understanding what it was before would give us a better baseline to see if we're improving against something that is more like for like.
Agreed.
And it was still too high.
I'm sure it was. I'm sure it was.
Yeah.
So, yeah, anyway, okay, thank you.
Thank you. So we are going to transition on the adventures of Scotty and Jesse into the middle school. And again, you'll see continuity and a lot of alignment as they go through their experiences in the middle school.
Nice job, Sarah.
Mr. Devine, thank you.
Thank you for having us here tonight. I'm Terry Devine. I'm the new middle school principal. So it is an honor to be here today, and it's been a pleasure to work with the admin team, the teachers, and everybody at the school. So I'm very excited to be part of the Norwich family. So, but let's talk about middle school. So as you can see, Scotty and Jesse now have grown a little bit, gotten a little taller, and they're going into the middle school. Now, we all know the middle schools boys and girls don't like each other, so at least when they start. So they're on opposite sides coming in. So as they're entering, let's see what happens when they get in 8th grade and they're going on to high school. But go ahead. First off, let's thank our team. If they're here, a couple of them are, we have Josh Bennett, Jamie Dowdle, Sue Ann Edwards, Amy Melville, Ellie Powers, Gary Skellington, Eric Stratton, and Elena Von Vanderkamp. Coming tonight, the team was wonderful, and I was a new guy. As Mr. Ryan said, my first day was strategic planning day one, and I just the day before arrived from Florida, so I was tired. By day three, I was like, woo. I'm gonna and click. All right, I want to hit you with some data first. Okay, just want to let this soak in. I looked at the data a little bit different. I looked at it in man hours or man days because it wasn't actually hours, but. So in sixth grade, seventh and eighth grade, and eighth grade, this is the first half of last year. You can see the amazing amount of days that our students missed. That's complete days of instruction. Excused or unexcused, doesn't matter, could be COVID, could be not. But that's just staggering. If you look at the bottom, it was an average at sixth grade. Every student was absent 10 times in the first 90 days, 11 in seventh grade and 14 in eighth grade. Now we know that every student wasn't absent that much. There were some that were way more chronically absent that drove those numbers up, but still to look at it in an average situation, that's where that was. And that was just kind of breaks my heart. So we're worried, obviously attendance is our number one. Good. Click for me. Thank you. Middle school is always different. They're changing, they're going through a lot in life. And I don't think anybody in it would want to relive middle school years again. If you do, let me know. I can make that happen. But we're going to really focus on making personal connections with our students. When we think back on the teachers that we had growing up, we don't remember what they taught us particularly. We remember how they taught us and who they were and how they helped us grow up to be adults. So really that's where our connection is going to be. We are really excited, middle school and high school, to have that advisory time built into our schedule. And we're going to take full advantage. You'll hear me talk about this a few times tonight. So we have a half hour every day after 8th period, before 9th period, which is it's going to be advisory time. And we're going to really concentrate on using that time to continue to make those meaningful relationships with the kids and help them pinpoint ways that they can improve. And then our team talked a lot to me about getting the kids back on track. They're out for 5 days. You can't just all of a sudden expect them to have 5 days worth of knowledge in their head, which they weren't there for. So how do we get them back on track? How do we catch them up and keep them progressing forward? So that's going to be an essential piece of our plan. Jessica, thank you. So our goal is 25% reduction. That's our goal. I'm looking at those numbers. Those aren't good enough for me. Okay, yes, that's our goal. That's where we're going to shoot for. 40% is better. 40% is still not good enough. It's better. So we're really going to hit that hard. Now we're going to hit that with our new student success coordinator, Ms. Powers, who's here with us tonight, with our at-risk coordinator, which we have a fabulous at-risk coordinator in the school. We're going to use the MTSS process with Ms. Race, and we're going to really everybody's going to be a part of that process. So you can click for me again, Jen. Jess, sorry, I'm good one. In addition, we're gonna really hook onto a middle school, high school relationship here. As you can see, little Scotty over in the corner, he's got Big Bubba Brett over there. He's guiding him. He's keeping track of his working on, hey, where's my little Scotty friend? He's not here today. So we're gonna, Mr. Graham and I are gonna work with our kids with academically and socially making connections. We use our study hall time. We'll use our teachers, we'll use some academic tutors over for some struggling students. So it's again, relationships. I can think of several high school mentors I had at that age. I went to a combined 7 through 12 school. So, and it's pretty important. And then increased communications from home. As you can see, the parent in the middle, and we need to make sure that those networks are always active. And again, you're going to see that. So we have some strategies in place in our curriculum to do that. Thank you, ma'am. Okay, number 2 is our PLC implementation, and you've heard this already from the others, but we really want to focus in the middle school on dedicating our time, being very explicit with how we use that time. Last year, this is year 2. So we're going to take the learning that they had. I didn't, but you're one for me. that we've had in the PLC and help us to progress forward, learn from those experiences and keep moving forward. We focus on student performance and really delve into how we use the data. We have data and it's there. We really want to learn how we use that to really impact and how we can use that and identify trends. And then, of course, enhancing collaborations for teachers, whether that's within a grade level, doing cross-curricular work, or if it's vertically in a department. So we're really going to focus on enhancing those activities as we. Thank you. Our goal, you heard about the PLT rubric before. Our goal is going to be, we're going to do a pre-test and a post-test, if you will, for our teachers. And our goal is to move one rubric in each of the areas. There are 16 areas, 16 or 17. And each one of those we want to move forward in the rubric so that we can show improvement. And we'll do that by teachers doing self-assessments. So, go ahead. Good. Okay, so goal 3 is improve student performance. We have 4 goals that I want to highlight here and improve student performance. Number 1 is consistency in grading practices across the school. Feedback that I've gotten is that we have too many outliers. We want to really focus in on how we grade and how we report grading. So one of the goals that we're going to do is, and you'll hear this from the high school, we're unified on this, is we're going to make sure that teachers are updating grade books at least weekly. And that's going to help our advisory period because teachers have real data to look at to see where the kids are. So that individual conferencing is going to be really important. And then again, that increased communication between home and school is going to be vital. So. All right, number 2 is we're going to hit our benchmark assessments. We do benchmark assessments in all subject areas once every 5 weeks. So we're going to have our teachers going to be focusing on moving 2%, and it doesn't sound like much, but it's an achievable goal. 2% every benchmark, every 5 weeks, that's 20% throughout the year. So that's going to be really important for us as we go forward. Goal 3, I want to hit the data on the bottom first. If you take a look, the BIMAS, which is a student self-reporting social SEL screener, thank you. The 2 areas, which are not a surprise for middle schoolers, that they reported the highest trouble or in the at-risk, their social awareness and self-management. Any of you have had middle schoolers, which you probably all have, self-management, we know that. So we're gonna be working in everything we do across about making sure social awareness and self-management. We want to reduce those areas, those self-reported high risk areas by 10% throughout the year. So that's our goal as we get there, and we're going to make sure relationships are a big part of that in the advisory period. How are we doing that? All right, and then our final.
Jerry, can I ask you a question? I forgot to ask you this the other day.
Yes, sir.
That data represents spring of 2022. Do you anticipate administering fall 22 and using that as your baseline, or are you going to use that as your
I'm
baseline?
going to use this as the baseline.
Yeah.
And then what we administer that 3 times this year.
Yeah.
So we'll hopefully hit those. we met earlier today. We already got this. We got this.
That's why I got that
ball
email.
rolling. All right, put it in there, Justin.
Thanks, Steve.
Yep, absolutely. Oh, one more time. There was a fly in there. Okay. And our last piece is to reduce our office disciplinary referrals by 25%. And I want to go to the data first at the bottom. And I didn't even hit what we had. You guys can do the math if you want. So 25% reduction would be 854 office referrals. That's way too many. Stop. Boom. We're going to fix this. We'll get into how. 50% reduction is a way better on that. And still that's probably too much. So what we're going to do is make sure that we have clear classroom management plans. We make sure that teachers know what goes to the office, what doesn't go to the office. We support them through the MTSS process, through our student success coordinator, our at-risk coordinator. We get them what they need, because more times than not, kids are misbehaving because they need something. So how do we figure out what they need? And so improved processes and procedures. To me, I'm a middle school guy, right? It's all about where are the bumpers, process and procedures. If students know where the guidelines are, they're more likely to be successful. So, you know, we're really stress that with staff. And then consistency across the school. That everybody expects the same thing. There's not, I can get away with it here and I can't get away with that there. So that's gonna be important. And then, of course, building relationships and connections. So as you can see, at the end of 8th grade, Scotty and Jesse are they like each other now. Not that way. But they're able to talk to each other and not walking in opposite sides of the door. So
So I would suggest Scotty needs the intervention to get rid of the fanny pack.
Very back.
I don't know. It's very, they're pretty hot in Europe, I'm just saying.
Yeah, the shoulders are
Way
out.
ahead of us.
Nice.
let's take a look now at
Sorry, Gary.
let's take a look at now as I introduce Mr. Scott Graham, the high school principal, and what happens if Scott gets that.
Hello, everybody. Good to see you. So. Yeah, we had a great time. I will tell you this, and what you're gonna notice is this continuum of getting rid of silos. We're not one school at a time. This is a continuum across the board. I think that's why you're seeing Scotty and Jesse move on to the high school. Go ahead. First, we want to celebrate all the people that helped us to collaborate coming up with these. So I'd like to thank Joe Elger, Lori Race, Kelly Colosi, John Martinson, Eric Corber, Bethany Stratton, Maggie Gregory, Sarah Waters, Paul Sims, and Mark Moutard. I'm part of that work too. Truly collaborative, and it's people who have been here forever, and people who just walked in on day one, and people who weren't really even played with this guy, right? So to get all these new fresh faces and working on this together has been an amazing experience. Go ahead. We get to the why, right? Here's our why, all these students. And this is from last year, so some of these have moved on and moved forward, but I love this picture. I love just watching how happy they are. So goal number one, again, to improve attendance. We're going to decrease chronic absenteeism, which again is absences of 18 or more school days by 50%. Last year, the high school was at 43.1. Yeah, we would like to get to 21.5. I think that's still too high. However, we were looking at some of this data. The question you asked previously, looking at the data, I believe it was around 16.1 previously. Mark's about maybe around 11.7, something like so. We're in that area. That's much lower. We're going to get there, but we want to take a chunk out of this. Really, COVID walloped our kids. I think it really led students, parents to believe that school's option. It's not. We want to have this mantra of miss a day, miss a lot. All right, so we want to make sure students are connected to our school. So our action plan is staff and community education as to the importance of attendance for students. We know if 9th graders start missing early on, they run a real risk of not graduating high school. We don't want that to happen. We want 100% of our kids to graduate and move on and do great things, right? This also goes to what's an illness? How can you come to school? We're getting updates every day as to how students can come to school. I'll tell you, last year, beginning of the year was 10-day quarantines for kids. They get hit 3-4 times. That's what we're looking at a lot of this, right? We want to streamline the attendance procedures for parents. One of the actionable steps we're taking is try to set up one email for parents to get through for an absence. Just make it much easier for parents. Early and targeted intervention through our multi-tiered system of supports. Specifically, we're looking at if a student misses 2 days, the teacher should report that to us. We want to hear that, and Lori and our team are going to move forward, and we're going to get a hold of that student. If we can't get a hold of that student, because that's pretty frequent, we're going to go get them. We're going to go to their homes, right? So we're going to increase those home visits as well. We also had a huge increase, and I want to say upwards of 12 courses this year in course offerings. We really believe that if you make kids want to be at school, they're going to be there. Like the drones and aviation. and music production courses, things they really want to do, things that students are really interested in. Go ahead.
Scott, real quick, before
Sure.
you transition. You spoke a little bit about the attendance. I just want to make sure the board is clear. The email, which really speaks to communication.
Yeah.
How you explained it to me was that a general email would be sent by the parent to say, Johnny is sick today, Johnny's got an appointment, whatever it might be, right?
Right.
And that goes to multiple people to ensure that if there is a pattern, right, of 2 or more days, that at least somebody is catching it and is able to reach out. Is that-
Yes, that's a really good way to put it, but it's also, we have staff absences as well, right? So we're looking at, if it only comes to one person,
Right.
that person can't inform us that this student's out, and we're tracking the trends on this too. And again, we're looking at the data to inform what we're doing.
It's an important piece.
Absolutely. Go ahead, thank you. So part of this, the attendance goal is also, we want to work towards a freshman academy to make sure that our ninth graders are really supported in a warm blanket of love, right? I mean, they have to, because we know this is a serious transition. Our trip to Meriden was invaluable in this. We really want to start with 100% of ninth graders who will participate in on-track conferences twice annually. What that, let me just explain that real quick. An on-track conference is sitting down with a staff member, could be a teacher, could be a food service person, could be a board member, right? And, or a community member that want to come in to do these things and have conversations. Oh, Ralph, you're definitely gonna be. But we want them to know not just the teachers and our staff care, but all staff cares about all kids. We also want to make sure that they know that the community cares about them as well, right? So we want to wrap them up in them. Freshman orientation is coming up on the 31st. We have a little bit different twist on this. We have a great plan coming up with this as well. We want to include the promotion of extracurricular opportunities within the orientation. Ninth grade students need to get connected immediately. We have to get them in. So, and we all know that if they're connected to something, anything with our school, they're going to be better off. So we're going to make sure that we're going to try to have 100% of those students connected to something. We're going to also commit to, just like every other school, right? So this is district wide. I want to stress that. 100 commit to the work of the professional learning community, 100%. Oh, no. 100% of the PLTs work collaboratively to create SMART goals and a method to assess progress towards these goals. The method is that rubric we keep referring to. I urge you to go look at that rubric. And really the assessment at our guiding coalition last year was invaluable for me to know where we have to work and where I need to work, right? As
Yeah,
well
who
as-
makes up the guiding coalition?
I'm sorry.
Who makes up the guiding coalition?
Well, it's all PLT leads.
There we go.
It's our admin, it's our,
Just so you context.
right, sorry about that.
That's okay.
So we all get together and come up with this and really self-assess and be honest about it. We don't want to blow up and inflate how we're doing. Let's be real about this. But our goal is to move it one level higher, push it to the right, just like I know for sure that the middle school is going to use that. Okay. Want to speak to a few different action steps here. So assure all students increase academic, social, emotional, and physical performance through direct intentional actions. Again, this is a performance piece. We're going to use benchmark assessments 3 times a year, the BIMAS, especially, and I know in every school, but especially in the high school, and especially with COVID, we found a lot of our students in pain, in need. Okay. Sorry. Spring of 2022, we found with self-awareness, 36.4% of our kids expressed were at risk for self-awareness, and self-management 26.8, a little bit down from middle school. Obviously, you know, that can be, but what we have to understand is we also have the highest amount of homelessness we've ever had among our students. So our goal in this is to have a 10% reduction through our MTSS process, through our at-risk coordinator, a brand new one, and through our counselors, who we hope to have on board very soon, and our social worker, and a whole team. I mean, this is a whole team approach to this. And the end at the bottom of that was the NWDA, which is another benchmark in math and ELA that we're going to use to inform the data to inform how we, where kids are going. Okay. this piece, this slide really speaks to the parent engagement that we would like to have. Grades updated weekly in school tool. We've streamlined that process as well. So there's that, you have to go to Schoology, Google Classroom, all these different things to find out a grade. I will tell you that it was frustrating for me, not only as a parent, but as an administrator, to try to find how are our kids doing. I want to know now, right? So we have to, and that's great for our parents and for our kids. That's a good self-assessment piece in high school. And we want parents invited 100%. I forgot to put this here. 100% of our parents will be invited to the scheduling process. This is a non-negotiable for us. We want to make sure they're all there. And it's as simple as setting up a Teams meeting. So everybody can be involved. And we want parents to opt out if they want. We're going to give them that opportunity, but we want them all there. We want to promote and communicate extracurriculars and after-school activities, our after-school enrichment and intervention extension there was an amazing help for a lot of our students. I think that showed a lot in our Regents results. We're really proud of those. And building-wide, we have a building-wide syllabus template that we've sent out and we're sending out to staff. We want parents and students to be aware of exactly what the expectations in every classroom are. We have a very varying range of courses from AP to just algebra, wherever you're going to be. We want every parent and kid to know exactly what's expected. We can get ready for college because that's your Bible in college right there, right? So what I'd like you to do now is if you could take that scenario that you've been handed. If you look on the back, just take a brief minute. If you look on the back, see if our structures and systems of support are helping all students.
What page am I looking
On the back of your
On
scenario.
on the very back.
Of each one.
Each one.
Oh, each one.
Which one? Yes, I'm sorry.
Yep.
I'm the middle school kid that doesn't listen to directions.
That never happens, by the way.
Yeah.
We have supports for you.
I did water safari with 6th, 8th graders. I did survive.
Awesome.
Did that.
You're brave.
Yeah.
I never stopped.
You guys have any other questions for me?
I have a couple comments, I guess, in general. The word consistency, I think is great. I think it's outrageously challenging to be consistent truly, whether that's consistency in how we grade, how we discipline or otherwise. But man, is it critical. It's certainly critical across all ages. I think middle school to high school even more. So these kids pick up on the inconsistencies and take advantage of all of them.
Oh, yeah.
All over the place. So driving that consistency, I think it's a great thing to hear. Just another comment on the kind of COVID and quarantines and all that. I think a big struggle, at least I see it on the private side, is people, it was a badge of courage to come into work sick 3 years ago. Now it's the opposite, right? If you have a slight sniffle or whatever, you stay home. I think there's some of that too, and I'm sure we get that with both staff and students. I don't think we want people coming in with those sniffles and stuff, but we've likely reset our if 11% was the number before, it's probably going to be a little higher because people are still a little bit more cautious, and we probably want them to be a little bit more cautious.
Sure.
So I think we have to think about that and at least take it a little bit into a consideration as we work through this.
Absolutely, and it's a balance, right? And we want to educate people as to how that goes.
Yeah.
Right, and we want to use our nursing staff and people who know better than I do,
Absolutely.
you know?
Good job. Bill. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Another point, no one would be missing school because they happen to be exposed, right? That's the worst.
Yeah.
When we have to say, you've been exposed, but you don't have any symptoms, and those are the barriers
Yeah.
that hopefully the new guidance is going to,
Exactly.
that will help us with our numbers. Right?
Commissioner Rosas next week has promised us some information from New York State Education Department and the Department of Health with respect to guidance around opening schools. It is expected to parallel that of the CDC.
Which is saying if you've been exposed, you don't have to.
Correct. Doesn't have to
Yeah.
come to place.
Thank you all so much.
Awesome, thank you.
So one of the things that you will see at the next meeting, if not sooner, in Friday reflection, is a proposed calendar of Board of Ed meeting topics or superintendent updates with regular updates with respect to these goals. So we're going to try to align those benchmark assessments or common formative assessments at each of the buildings so that our administrative team and our PLT leads can report back to you in terms of what our growth looks like with respect to the goals. So you'll see that in draft form very soon, and we will wrap that up for the rest of the year. Make sense? Great. Any discussion, any comments on strategic plan draft?
Well, I just want to say a few things. I want to thank all of you for your work on this. It's very refreshing, and I'm here what Brian said. It's great to be looking at academics and students and stuff. It's really great. You know, I have two that have gone through the school, and I've got two more that are on their way up through. And I see a lot of great things here, and I'm very inspired about it. So I thank you for all your hard work on this. And I'm also very thankful that we are 22 days away from school. And we're talking about this 22 days ahead instead of 5 days ahead. So I want to thank all of you for the extra work way ahead of time, and we're just seeing that the planning piece coming together. It means a lot to me, and I know it means a lot to the rest of the board that we're talking about these plans, and we're way out of school, and it's great. I know we have a lot of work to do. I know all of you do, but thank you for the work. It's great. Thanks.
And if I can just say also, coming off of that teacher role just recently and hearing all of this is very exciting, and I'm super excited for the staff at Norwich City Schools to have this plan in place, and like you said, consistency and knowing ahead of time what's ahead is exciting. So thank you to all of you who work so hard.
Good. Please accept the huge congratulations to all of you for that.
And did Scotty and Jesse graduate?
Jesse was touch about Scott.
All right. Okay, are we prepared to move on to our next item? All right, discussion items. So the first one on there is 23-24 cell phone policy.
Yeah, so I think I mentioned this earlier that I have an idea, right? The idea is I'd love to spend an entire year really looking at how our mission and vision and our value system really lend itself or align with our existing policy around cell phone or electronic device use while at school. Huge topic across the entire nation right now. You're starting to see some school districts, within a 100-mile radius from us right now saying, August 1st, communicating to all parents, hey, just so you know, this year there will be zero tolerance with respect to electronic device use in school, right? Saying that is one thing, and I understand why they're proactively communicating it, because it will be an absolute nightmare to manage. However, I think it's an opportunity for us as a Board of Education, as well as a community, to engage as many stakeholders as possible around this discussion, including our student body, by the way. And so using thought exchange and using survey data, really see where, what best practice looks like, what existing practice looks like, some existing barriers, some existing struggles of our staff and students, those types of things. And maybe do some digging even into how many discipline referrals we have that sort of are impacted by use of electronic device during the school day and or after school hours. And so what I'd love to be able to do is put this on intentionally every single month, and every single month we do a report out with whether it's data collection or something to really generate some communication at the board level. By the end of next year, what I would hope to do is able to say, you know what, we're gonna maintain the existing policy, we're gonna revise the existing policy, or we're gonna change the board, whatever it might be. But really by 23, 24, in stone, say this is what Norwood City School District believes in. And we know that based on feedback from a huge variety of stakeholders. Does that make sense?
Just a comment.
Yeah.
This is obviously a
Yeah.
lightning rod topic. I'm glad my kids don't listen to board meetings as I talk. Wouldn't make it home. Regardless of how I feel, I think it's a great idea to benchmark. We're on like not that we haven't thought about this, but this is still kind of the bleeding edge. And sometimes being first isn't always the best thing. Get a lot of information this year to be able to come back. A thought I had, and I'm saying we should do this or not, but maybe we think about is, we're gonna get a lot of good benchmark data, but is there a consideration or should there be a consideration for us running a trial of a week, 2 weeks, see what we feel during that time, end of the year, May, June, whatever would be appropriate at whatever level is appropriate. I think as much as we'll hear back from benchmark, we will have every school will have their unique experience, and it might be a decent idea to consider a trial period, just so we get our own data.
Yeah, I love that. And we actually tried it in middle school a couple years ago prior to the pandemic, where we went an entire day. Right, we voted it
Yeah.
prior to, and so what I'm gonna talk with the leadership team is, how do we begin to maybe set the stage for that with our student body, right? And engage the students in helping make that decision on when and how.
Yeah.
Not
Cool.
just sort of top down.
How was it monitored when it was a full day? I guess what I'm asking is, how did you make sure? How was it addressed?
So what I can tell you is that, especially at the middle school level, there's no way you can get to 100%.
Sure.
We did was really focus on those that did want to participate in it, and then we saw feedback afterwards.
I know for a fact that children survived without. My middle schooler did it for 8 days this summer on a canoe trip, and he was perfectly fine when he got there. It was actually a different.
No shakes or anything when you got back?
No, it was a different child. Anyway.
Adults too. I can
Adults too.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think it's gonna be a good conversation topic, right? Great.
It's not on our discussion item, but I think one of the things that we recognized in the last month, we had the opportunity to go to a law conference with our legal firm, and one of the things that came out of that was a real hard look at policy. One of our roles as a Board of Education is policy. And it became pretty evident that our policy for Norwood City School District, the board policy is pretty big. It's huge. And one of the things that, we would like, I think is an important focus for us this year is to really identify an appropriate way to very, very thoroughly analyze the policy for the school district, because there may be quite a bit in there that is unnecessary or even not appropriate when it comes to the current things. So one of the things that we've kind of discussed here and there is a deep analysis of the overall policy for the district, and utilizing the policy committee that we're going to take action on, setting those names, and also meeting several times as a board, as with work sessions to very specifically look at policy. And one of the things I discovered over the last few days is that there are BOCES that have specific policy services available to us. So that's something that we can look at, having a policy service assist us in analyzing the huge stack of policies that we have that go all the way back to 1970 something. But that's just a note there. I don't know if anyone else has comment on that, or Mr. Ryan. Yeah. want to speak to it?
No, I love that. The day doesn't lend itself for me to, spend time reviewing policy. What I can tell you is that we, with Pam's help, we were able to bring at least, 40, if not 50, different policies to the board for first read and second read last year. Really cleaning up some of the language, but I think what you're talking about is reviewing those policies that are no longer needed potentially, and really making sure that we have a representation of those things that are relevant for today's education.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
I think what.
That is quite a large
It
task.
is it's a heavy lift and, I was not aware that there were policy services available through a variety of postings. So we may look at that. We can discuss that when we have more information. Some of the things that came out of that conference was the fact that there are, in some cases, policies that may be actually illegal, that we are not appropriate to even have on the book. So, we're going against, things. I don't know that's the case, but we have not had a deep dive in it in quite some time. So, that is a goal I think we need to take on. So we'll gather some more information about policy services, and we'll kind of have our policy committee dive into how we want to move forward with that.
Great. So when you're clear on what some action steps for me might be, just let me know. If you need me to prepare anything prior to a subcommittee meeting on policy, then
I think obviously we will want to research what policy services are out there that
Okay.
might assist us in
Yeah.
making that happen a little bit less painfully and quickly.
Ralph, are you familiar?
Yeah, I'm familiar with the policy service and be happy to help you.
Yeah, that'd be great. That, I think that would help us. That's a heavy lift to go through all that, and they all have to do with, they all have a legal aspect. The policy does. So a service is better versed in the legal parts of that, instead of us having to send everything to our attorney. And so on. So, great. We will discuss that moving forward. So.
Brian, any takeaway from when you were there? You wanted to share?
Yeah, it was eye-opening, I guess, to say the least. When you get into legal matters, some things don't make a lot of sense. That's for sure. And then there's a lot to be considered. The policy thing, I think I would agree with Chris, really hit me pretty hard as we were talking through. And the idea, inherently, I think people know, but we still don't follow that. We always think creating more policies is a good thing, when the reality is most of it's practice, and staying out of policy and moving into practice is such a positive thing. And there was a few things coming up I thought that were interesting in terms of, everybody kind of raised their head and thought they're more on Mr. Bartlett's budgetary side, but it was really helpful. It's really informative. There's some phenomenal people. We've got a great law firm, and it really helped drive a lot of good kind of strategic future looking goals. But policy is a big one. I think we take it for granted too often until it bites you, and then you really wish that you did a better job kind of looking at them ahead of time. So it's past due time to refresh. And you're right, it's a heavy lift to do on your own. So whether it's Erie One or a million of the others that offer these services, I think it's due time to get there.
Great. So we'll report out some options for policy service.
Would be great.
Good.
Excellent. Thanks. Next item on there is the superintendent evaluation. So at this point, following our retreat, everyone has the ability to go in and make comments on the evaluation. There are a few folks that still have some work to do on that. And once those comments are completed, then we'll have a finalized evaluation. One of the other things was Mr. Ryan presented us with some high level goals at the retreat for us to kind of review. And I believe we're gonna move forward with developing that, the matrix, so to speak, that has actionable items and deliverables and things like that. That's that will then put into super eval, we'll have as things that we can kind of look at.
Great, so I will wait to finalize my goals, because if there's anything in the evaluation, right, it has to be reflected in this year's goals, and I want to be able to have flexibility to do that.
That's good.
Now, can I just ask a question? I filled out the board self-evaluation piece of super eval, right? I guess I didn't, was there anything further that needed to be done after
Yeah,
that?
so the Mr. Ryan, if you choose Mr. instead of the board, at the top,
Okay.
there's a drop down. You choose Mr. Ryan's name there, and
Okay,
then that'll open the areas for comment.
You also have to choose school year too.
okay, all right, I'll get that done.
Only Brian and I have done it so far.
Pick that part out.
Calling people out.
Laying the hammer down. We did
Right.
if you want to make that.
Probably.
Because I know what I'm doing when I get there.
In all fairness to me, I'm not.
Count me done.
Yeah,
Here it
that's fine.
is.
That's fine.
We do have a new-
Even if I hadn't done that, I would have called myself out.
Just wanna let you know you do-
That's like, I did my homework. I have to tell you, I texted Brian Burton on vacation because I couldn't figure out why it wasn't working for me as he was drinking his margaritas. So,
That's what he was doing here.
he was-
Okay.
I tried.
All right. Any other items for discussion? Okay, so I'll entertain a motion to approve all the items on the consent item list.
I will.
So moved by Kieran, second. Second by Deb. Any discussion or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried. Action items, board policy approval, it's recommended. We don't have multiples. It's recommended that the Board of Education approve the attached board policy for first reading. A203.4 terms and conditions of employment, managerial, confidential, and non-represented employees. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Brian Reed. Second.
Second.
Second by Kieran. Any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried. Confirmation and authorization of tax warrants is recommended that the Board of Education adopt the attached 22-23 tax warrant resolution, confirming the tax roll and authorizing issuance for the warrant for the 22-23 school year. Tax spreadsheet 22-23. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Brian Reed, second.
I'll
By
second.
Clyde Birch. Any questions or discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried. Approval of seeker type 2 resolution. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the attached seeker type 2 resolution for the federal stimulus project. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Brian Reed, second. By Deb. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried. Acceptance of ESSER and or year funding resolution. It is recommended that the Board of Education accept the attached ESSER and or year funding resolution.
So moved.
Motion by Brian, second
Second.
by saw Deb's hand first.
Okay.
Any discussions? Questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried. Approval of professional learning plan. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the attached professional learning plan for the 2022 school year.
So moved.
Motion by Brian Reed, second.
Second.
Second by Kieran. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried. I'm not going to read all these. These are the committee appointments. So we have internal audit, finance, which are going to be the same members. Policy, capital project planning, and community action. Do I have a motion to move all the committee appointments?
So moved.
Moved by Brian Reed, second.
All three of them.
Hearing
is right.
that, hearing that. Any questions or comments? My only, and I've talked to most of you on the phone, is that we did our best to try and get everybody in the areas that they had a need in. You know, it's hard to cover all these committees with just 7 of us and not have more than 3, which is what we're limited to. So. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried. Do I have a motion to accept the personnel recommendation? I'll make the motion. Moved by Clyde, second. Second by Brian Reed. Any discussion or questions?
Want to congratulate Mrs. Gilbo for showing up 5 times on the first time. You made your record, might be a record.
Get my calculator out.
Any other questions or discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried. Do you have any public comment? None. Okay. All right, we are having an executive session to discuss matters of personnel or legal or contracts. We will not be taking any action afterwards, so. Very good. Yeah, we're going to invite the admin team to join us. So I have a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Moved by Brian Reed, second by